Hi everyone, so by now I'm sure you all know that I love my budget brands. As you can imagine, I was really excited when Penneys slash Primark came out with their own line of makeup, and I've been picking up their products over the last little while so I could test them out in a video for you. A couple of other Irish YouTubers have done this style of video already, Aisling from DramaticMac and Riona from Riona Cahill, and I'll leave their channels linked below so you can check out their versions because they were the inspiration behind this makeup look, so thanks very much ladies. And if you'd like to see me putting Penny's makeup to the test, then just keep watching. I'm starting out with the brows, and firstly I'm going to use this brow pencil. It has a spoolie on one end and then the pencil on the other end, and mine is in the shade medium. So before I define my brows, I'm just using the spoolie to comb the hairs in the one direction just to make sure that they're sitting nicely in place. The pencil is nice and creamy and I found it very easy to apply. It's soft but not so much so that you can't create some definition, you most certainly can. It's not too soft and not too hard, it's the perfect in between and it's really pigmented. The only thing for me is that the pencil is a little too warm. Tone wise it's not a great match for me, but if there was a version that would match my brows I'd definitely pick it up because it's actually a really nice product. To set that pencil in place so that it doesn't smudge, I'm going in with this brow kit and I'm using it to further define my brows. In this kit you get 2 brow powders and a wax. So I began with the lighter of the 2 powders, the colour in the middle of the kit, and I started to fill in my brows. This colour matches my natural brow colour, so that's a very light brown, but I like to deepen the colour of my brows, so I moved on to the darker shade in the palette and used that instead. Like with the pencil though, my problem with this brow kit is that the colours are too warm, but again it's a nice product, it just doesn't suit me colour wise. I prefer my Wet n Wild brow kit. Finally for the brows, I'm just cleaning up the shape of them with a little bit of the Penneys foundation, and I'll have more on that later on in the video, but I literally just used the tiniest amount of foundation that was in the lid and then I ran it along the base of my brow to tidy the shape and add some further definition. The day that I was shopping in Penneys, this was the only primer available, so I picked it up. It's the Mattifying primer, but I do know that it comes in an illuminating version too. I have some strange pigmentation on my cheek at the moment, and that's what I was pointing at. You can't really see it on camera though, but overall my skin is quite red at the moment. I'm applying the primer all over my face because I like a matte appearance to my skin. If you have oily skin and you just want to keep the oils at bay, you could apply it solely to the areas in which you get oily, so perhaps the T-zone. The primer has a silicone slash gel like feel to it. It's really nice on the skin and my skin actually felt soft to the touch, so I was really impressed with it first impressions wise, but I'll have to use it a few more times to know if it actually works. For foundation, I'm going in with the liquid foundation in the shade Ivory, and I'm going to apply it with this contour brush, and I picked up this brush because it's the kind of one that I generally like to use for foundation. The first thing I noticed about the foundation was that it had a strong smell to it. It kind of smelled like Palmolive soap, like dish soap or hand soap. It didn't bother me, I was just worried because it was so heavily scented and I've really sensitive skin, but thankfully I didn't have any issues with it. It's a medium coverage foundation with a semi-matte finish, but I definitely think it can be built up to a full coverage. As for the brush, I really liked it. It only shed one hair, as you may have spotted, but it didn't shed any more, even after washing, so for €2 you really can't go wrong. There aren't many shades of the foundation. Ivory is the palest, I'm pretty sure, and as you can see it's a bit too dark for my skin, but I'm taking it down the neck too, so it's fine. I picked up this Ivory stick concealer to match the foundation. There were no liquid concealers left when I went into Penneys, so I picked this one up instead. And the colour frightened me at first because it looked very yellow, but thankfully it didn't transfer like that onto the skin. Because the foundation is medium coverage, I still had a few places that I wanted to add further coverage to, so that patch of redness on my cheek, some blemishes, and that sort of thing. The stick concealers usually provide more coverage than liquid ones, so I was probably better off with this concealer for my type of skin. To blend this into the skin, I'm using a sponge, so I wet it, I squeezed out the excess water, and then I was ready to go. I've used a few of these over the years from a few different brands, but it's been about 3 years since I used one, so I can't really compare it to others. I noticed that it didn't expand after I wet it, and it still felt very wet even though I'd squeezed out the water, but it got the job done. It blended out the concealer fine. So I mean, if you've never used a sponge before and you're curious, you may as well give it a go because I think it was only $1.50 and it's not bad. There were no eyeshadow primers either, so I'm kicking it old school and applying foundation as my base, and the sponge was really nice and cooling on the eye area, so I like that as well. Penneys stock a loose powder, but I'm not a fan of those in general for setting my foundation, so I'm using the highlighter shade from this contour palette, and I knew it didn't contain shimmer particles in it from watching Aisling's video, so I decided I would use it as my face powder. I quite liked this because it mattified my skin along with adding a little extra coverage because the powder had a tint to it. If you don't have really oily skin, I'd say you could skip this step because I actually think the foundation looks really nice on its own. It's a semi-matte finish, so it gives the skin that just kind of nice amount of glow, and I'm not forgetting to set my eyelids either because I don't want my eyeshadows to crease. For the eyes, I'm beginning with this Nudes palette, and I'm using the white shade underneath my brow bone. This wasn't very pigmented, it was actually quite powdery, and at this point I felt like my face was really flat, so I'm jumping back to the skin for a minute and then I'll return to the eyes. I'm going back to that contour kit now and I'm taking the darkest shade. The kit actually comes with a brush, so I'm using that to apply the product. The contour shade, it's really pigmented. I can't even begin to explain to you. You need the tiniest amount of product on the brush. If you are of a light to medium skin tone, I think this will look really nice. I wouldn't say it would show up very well on darker complexions, and if you've got porcelain skin like myself naturally, I think it'll look a little bit muddy. I'm using the same brush again to apply the middle shade in the contour kit. It's a slightly peachy toned shade, so I'm using it as a blush, but it really didn't do anything. Overall though, I'm really impressed with the contour kit. It's probably my favourite item so far. I like to mattify my skin and then add back in that shine where I want. So next I'm going in with this golden toned highlighter and I'm applying it in a C shape, so from the top of my cheek up around the eyebrow and back down. 2 applications of this product give such a gorgeous glow to the skin. I was really impressed with this product in particular. With the result that it gives, you'd think I used a high-end product. It's phenomenal. I picked up this eyeshadow palette. It contains 10 kind of rose toned shadows. It has the name of the shadows on a plastic slip on the inside, which isn't ideal because I mean, you're not going to keep the bit of plastic, but anyway, it was €6, so like what did I expect? I'm beginning with this matte lavender shade and applying it in the crease. The colour selection of this palette reminds me of the Naked 3 palette from Urban Decay, but quality wise it doesn't have a patch on it. The shade I chose was a matte shade and this applied quite well. I was happy enough with how it looked. Now what I'm doing is I'm just going around the edge of that lavender shade with a clean blending brush just to make sure those edges are buffed out. I decided that I'd go for a bronze shimmery smoky eye, so I moved back to my Nudes palette. The eyeshadow wasn't really applying well with the brush, so I thought I'd use my finger and then kind of blend it out with the brush if I needed. Pigmentation wise it was okay, there was just so much excess product floating around in the pan though every time I put my brush into the shadow, and then despite tapping off the excess product I still had fallout down onto my cheeks. Next then I decided to add some definition to the eyes, so I took some of the darkest shade in the Nudes palette and applied it to the outer third. Well, I tried to apply it, but there was no pigmentation to this shadow whatsoever. I then went back to my other palette and used some of the darkest shade in that palette, but again I had the fallout issue. I mean, it was something else. I had to keep dusting the excess product off my cheeks, but in the end it was just all a bit too much. I ended up looking like I hadn't slept ever. There was no way to fix the issue other than to remove the makeup from under the eye area and reapply it. I think this is where you really see as well how good those base products were. Like coverage wise, there's a huge difference in how my skin looks. But anyway, the eyeshadows were just horrific, save your money. There are plenty of other affordable brands on the market at the moment that do amazing shadows, so stick with them. So really quickly, I've just reapplied my foundation, I've set it, I'm now reblending my contour and adding some more highlighter, and then it just looks as good as new. Now that I've got over that blip, I'm moving on to eyeliner. I picked up this felt tip liner pen as they didn't have a liquid and they had gel, but I mean, you all know how I feel about gel. The pen has a really fine point to it, and what I really liked was that it wasn't scratchy. The pen is phenomenal, there's no other words for it. It's extremely pigmented, so easy to use. I'm just really impressed. It literally looks like I've used a gel or a liquid because it's so dark, which isn't always the case with felt tip liner pens. I really didn't expect it to perform this well, and overall I was just pleasantly surprised. As always with liner, what I like to do is draw my outline and then I fill it in. Once I've got that liner in place, then I'm moving on to my next product. I've used this one before and I love it. It's a Corrector pen, so it basically has a makeup remover or something in it that's going to help you clean up mistakes. Now, I don't really have any mistakes with my liner because the pen was just a dream to use, but I am using it to sharpen up that wing. Onto the false lashes now. You know I adore the Penneys ones, I use them in nearly every tutorial, I just change between the styles. Today I'm using the Sultry lashes and I'm just popping them on, and I have a full video on how to apply false lashes if you're interested. Moving on to mascara now. Because I have false lashes on, you're not going to see the effects of this mascara, but for me, I wear false lashes most of the time, so I don't need an expensive mascara. This mascara blended my own lashes in with the false ones really well, it was easy to remove, so it's one I will be repurchasing. For the lower lash line, I'm going in with that brow pencil and applying it just at the base of my lower lashes, and I'm keeping it to the outer third. Then I'm using the contour powder in that kit to set the pencil in place and just to add something to the lower lash line to balance the look out. I couldn't cope with going back in with those shadows, so that's why I've used these products. I'm using this lip scrub next, purely because I had it. It smells lovely, it's like toffee or something, it's really sweet. I just thought it was going to be a fun item, I didn't think it would actually work, but it did. I found it left my lips feeling really soft afterwards, so yeah, gets a thumbs up for me. I've heard so many people talking about the brand's lip products, and I'd never used their lip liners before, but I really like the look of the shades. I'm going for a nude lip today, so I'm just lining my lips and then filling them in. This lip liner was really creamy, really pigmented, and for $1.50 it's a steal. I'll definitely be picking up more colours. Lipstick wise, I'm going with a nude to match, and sorry mine is used in the photo. I'm loving this lipstick lately, as are the entire country, because the lipsticks were out of stock in every Penneys that I went to. I found the lipstick dragged across the lips for the first couple of times I used it, but after that it softened up and I find it wears really well, so the lipsticks get a thumbs up for me as well. But then that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this style of video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.